So it has my customary Bruce squeal. I also have very limited arm movement because I'm kind of squished in here because my microphone is right in front of my face and my chair won't go back, and I've got a laptop on my arm, so I'm kind of like very, very, oh no, very, very squished. But hey, we'll carry on as we normally would. So I thought I'd cover RAID today because I mentioned it yesterday in my home server video, and I kind of thought that it might be worth me actually explaining what RAID is and things like that, because, well, just for, you know, educate users and things like that, and get people to use RAID more often if they're not familiar with it. So what does RAID stand for? Well, RAID stands for, I'm just reading from a Wikipedia article over here, which I'll put in the link down below. I do actually know this, but I did it in A-level computing, and I did it so long ago I can't actually remember. But it doesn't really matter what it's called, to be honest. But it stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks. It originally used to stand for Redundant Array of Inexpensive Disks, but now that's null and void because companies use quite expensive disks and they still use RAID. So yeah. So let's go into well, RAID and JBOD then, really, because JBOD's kind of the standard thing you have everywhere. JBOD stands for just a bunch of disks, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. It is just a bunch of disks. That's what my current setup is. I've just got a load of drives in my home server that've got different stuff on it. So I've got a drive for TV and podcasts and music, and I've got another one for my for one set of Blu-ray backups / rips, and another one from the same sort of stuff, another one for DVDs, and then the list goes on for all sorts of different things, and they're all just on random disks, and they've not got any sort of order necessarily, and it's kind of a bit of a mess and a muddle. But that's JBOD, and it's the most easiest to sort out because it means you just chuck in a drive, set it up, and it's a new drive, and there you go. But RAID is kind of, well, has several big advantages, but I'll go through the three key ones that you need to know as a home user, that you probably want to know and use as a home user, and then maybe some more like RAID 5 and RAID 6, just for interest purposes, really. So RAID, what I'll do is I shall cover those top three. So RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 10. So RAID 0. RAID 0 is striping across the drives. So I did explain this in my home server video, but we'll cover that again. So striping across the drives basically means that it'll put. Now, let's for instance suggest you've got 5 drives that are 2 terabyte drives, so you've got 10 terabytes of space. So what you can do is you RAID them all together. You put RAID 0 on it. Now you've then got what the OS will see and what the computer will see is a 10 terabyte space, like a 10 terabyte drive essentially. It's not a physical drive. It's, you know, it's 5 separate drives, but it's acted as though it's one big drive. So you've got that 10 terabytes to play around and do whatever you want. So what will happen is, say you've got like a 20 gig file, maybe like a 20 gig MKV file. There's like your Blu-ray rip. You've transcoded it into MKV, so you can put it on any device, and you don't want to lose quality or anything like that. So you've got that, and what it'll do is it'll put bits of data on every single drive. So it'll put a bit of data on drive 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and so it will stripe it across the lot. So not one drive has got containing your entire Blu-ray stuff, or that entire file. Now this is quite good because that means that we have increased speeds, as well as the fact we've got then increased space, because we've not then got individual 2 terabyte drives, we've got a whole 10 terabyte space to play around with. It also means we've got increased speed, so if one drive is a theoretical maximum of 6 gigabits, 5 drives will have a theoretical maximum of 30 gigabits. Now that is a theoretical maximum. You know we're not going to get anywhere near that number because you're just not. You may be lucky if you get a gig on one drive, so you times that by 5. You got 5 gig there, which is really, really good. So you got increased speeds. Now this is really good for OSs. If you just RAID 0, say like 2 SSDs, you've got twice the speed of one SSD. So SSDs are super, super fast as it is anyway. But if I don't know, for instance, you want, I don't know, you want your programs to load even faster, or you want to boot up even faster, you know, twice as fast as you could with one SSD, you RAID 0 them up and they're good to go. I mean, RAID 0 on SSDs are a pain in the padded ass, and putting RAID 0 with OS is a pain in the backside, but it does increase your speed. It's the same with standard drives, so say you've got two 500 gig drives, you RAID 0 them up, you've got increased speeds, which is good. But there's one thing to mention with that. there's no redundancy. So if one of your drives fails, that's it. There's no backup. There's nothing. So if one of your drives fails, you've lost all your data. There's no way of getting it back. Well, there might be a way of getting it back, but with data rebuilds and things like that, but it's unlikely because you've lost our OneDrive with the rest of your data on it. With that 20 gig file, you've got then a fifth of it is gone because that OneDrive's failed, which is where RAID 1 comes in, I suppose, really. Now, RAID 1 is essentially just a duplicate. So you've got two drives. What you put on drive 1 will be mirrored on drive 2. So if you put that 20 gig Blu-ray file on drive 1, it'll be on drive 2. Now that's good because that means if one of your drives fails, then you've got that secondary drive that's a backup. The only downside to that obviously means you've got to double up the amount of drives you've got, so it's going to increase your costs and your expenditure, but it does mean you've got a backup. And then we come on to RAID 10, which is kind of best of both worlds, really. It's a combination of RAID 0 and RAID 1, which is why it's called RAID 10. RAID 1, RAID 0. So essentially you've got RAID 0 and essentially two banks of RAID 0s set up, but one mirrors the other. So you've got it's like a RAID, so you've got a RAID 0 array over here, and you've then got a RAID 0 array over here, and whatever's on this array will be copied straight over onto that array. So that means if one of your drives fails, or I don't know, a couple of drives fail in one array, it's fine because you've got a backup on the second one. Or if one drive fails on that one and another drive fails on that one, it doesn't matter because assuming not the same drive has failed, you can then swap them over and they're good to go, and you've got all your data's there and it's all backed up. The only downside to that obviously is, again, the increased cost. You're going to have to double up your drives. So if you had 5 drives, then you're going to have to have 10 drives, which means that you're going to increase your costs a lot. You're looking at probably about £1,000 for something like that, because 2 terabyte drives cost about at the moment about 117, 115 quid if you're lucky. So you're looking at well over £1,000 just for hard drives, nothing else. For 10 hard drives, you're looking at a lot of money. But it does mean you've got 10 terabytes and you've got redundancy, and it's amazing. And actually, in terms of a business sense, that's shit all. Inexpensive discs, that's nothing, because businesses use SCSI drives and they cost 500 quid a go. And they're designed to be worked, they're designed to be on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They're supposed to never ever fail. There's ridiculous amounts of warranty on them, and companies pay a lot of money for that. But obviously, as a home user, you don't necessarily need to worry about that. But what I will mention is I will mention 2 extra bits of RAID, which is RAID 5 and RAID 6. Now, these generally don't relate to people in the home sense because it just doesn't matter, because you're not really going to use it. They include parity. Now, I'm not going to go into parity because I don't fully understand it myself, and you don't really need to know about it. But RAID 5 and RAID 6 essentially are like RAID 0 with parity and with one drive being able to fail. So with RAID 5, you can have one drive fail and you're fine. It's absolutely fine and dandy. Don't panic. Your array will be fine. If one drive fails, you're good to go. Don't worry about it. Replace that drive. You're fine and dandy, and we're all good. RAID 6 is 2 drives can fail and you're still fine. So if 2 of your drives fail, which is unlikely, but it could potentially happen, maybe you've got a power outage or something like that, there's a surge, 2 of your drives go, oh no, disaster, but it doesn't matter because you've got 2 drives can fail and your array will be absolutely fine, so it doesn't matter. Obviously, in a corporate sense, you'll be doing tape backups as well, and you may have several, you may have RAID 6 going, but you may have RAID 61 going, no, RAID 16 going. RAID 16? Yeah, I think it must be RAID 16. So that then you've got 2 RAID 6 things going on, and one copies over the other, so that if anything fails, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is probably this is what happens in huge data centers. Have got petabytes of data. They'll have so many redundancies, it's ridiculous because they don't want to lose any of that data. So yeah, I suppose that's really it, really. The only thing to, I suppose, really go on to is making sure all your drives are exactly the same. If you go for a RAID setup, you can do it with multiple drives that are completely different, so Hitachi, Seagate, Western Digital, but really for the most reliable and the best sort of possible RAID setup you could get is to get all exactly the same. So either get all Hitachis, all Seagates, all Toshiba drives, all Western Digital drives, so that you're not going to have compatibility problems and there's bin speed's going to be exactly the same, and the tolerances are going to be similar as well, because obviously different manufacturers have different tolerances, and it could interfere with things. Theoretically, it shouldn't, but you don't want to increase the likelihood of that happening. So if you're going to do it, just go. I mean, to be honest, if you're going to buy them all at once, because if you're going to do RAID, you're probably going to buy them all at once anyway. You may as well just buy them all at the same time and be done with it. But I suppose that's kind of it, really. I didn't go into setting RAID up because there's no point. Setting RAID up can be a bit of a pain in the backside, and it depends upon what you're using, whether or not you're using your motherboard to do it, or whether or not you're using a dedicated RAID card, and it just varies really, depending upon what you're using. So that's kind of it, really. I'm going to leave it here because it's gone on for far too long. I shall drink my Bruce Squee, and I shall catch you later.